Thank you to our viewers who are tuning back into another newly listed on the CSE clip. This one's a little different here because the company Awakn Life Sciences was previously listed on another exchange. It's now listed on the Canadian Securities Exchange. And we are speaking with Anthony Tennyson, who is the co-founder and CEO of Awakn Life Sciences Corp. It trades under the symbol AWKN. Anthony, welcome to CSE TV. I hope you're doing well.
I am indeed. It's good to speak to you, and it's good to speak to your audience today.
Excellent. Anthony, let's, I actually want to talk a little bit about alcohol addiction treatment. But before we jump into that, why don't you give our viewers an introduction to Awakn Life Sciences and the focus of your company?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we're a biotechnology company. We're in fact a late clinical stage biotechnology company developing medication-assisted treatments for addiction with a near-term focus on alcohol use disorder, which unfortunately is a condition that affects about 50 million people in the US, Canada, and the key European markets of UK, Germany, Italy, France, and Spain. We have three core programs. Our lead program, AWKN 001, we've completed phase 2. We're targeting severe alcohol use disorder. We achieved groundbreaking results in phase 2. People coming onto that trial, they were abstinent, so sober, 2% of the time. So they were sober 7 days a year. In the active arm of the trial, we got them to being abstinent or sober, on average, 86% of the time in the 6 months post-treatment, which is about 3.5 times better than the current standard of care for alcohol use disorder. We're in a very lucky position. We're progressing that forward now into phase 3 in partnership with the UK Department of Health, and we're expecting enrolment to start in this current quarter. We've got a secondary program where we're working with the German pharmaceutical company, and we're targeting the US market for alcohol use disorder. And we've got a tertiary program where we're working to repurpose MDMA to improve the pharmacokinetics of MDMA, all of which we're focusing on alcohol use disorder in the near term, and will broaden out into other addictions in due course.
And so currently, if I'm not mistaken, you said you guys are in the clinical stages of this.
That's correct. We're in late clinical stage. So lead program moving in, start phase 3 enrollment due to start this current quarter. Secondary program, we're hoping to get into phase 2 in the US in the medium term. And our third program is earlier stage.
It's an early stage. Got it. Now, I want to get your insight a little bit. I'm sure our audience as well, a lot of the focus right now when it comes to addiction goes into the fentanyl crisis. There's a lot of talk around that, which is equally important. But alcohol addiction has been around for centuries now. And I want to get your insight into what current treatment looks like.
So I think the first thing that is really important to understand with alcohol addiction is the number of people that are affected, really. As I mentioned, 50 million people in North America and key European markets, 285 million people globally. So this is a very big problem. In the US, specifically current treatments, there's about 14,500 clinics in the US treating alcohol use disorder. And direct costs to the healthcare system, Medicaid payers, $25 to $35 billion a year. Most of that treatment is talk-based therapy only, with pretty poor outcomes. You're looking at about a 75% relapse rate 12 months post-treatment. So within 12 months of treatment, 3/4 of people who are treated will have relapsed. That results in only very, very few people who suffer with this disease actually seeking treatment. So in the US, of the 29 million people that suffer with alcohol use disorder, only 10% of those people seek treatment. And of those people that seek treatment, 3/4 have relapsed 12 months post-treatment. So there is a significant treatment gap or unmet medical need with this disease in the US. And those trends are the same in most other countries or most other developed economies where this disease is prevalent.
So now, as you and your team are moving to hopefully provide a solution to alcohol addiction treatment, what are some of the challenges that you come across and face?
Well, some of the challenges, what we're doing is we're repurposing approved or soon to be approved drugs to be then used in combination with therapy to treat alcohol use disorder. The drugs that we're working with are currently scheduled. So we're working with ketamine. Now that's okay. Ketamine is an approved medicine. It's already on label as a painkiller and as an anesthetic in most economies. But we're also, as I mentioned at the front end of this interview, we're also working with MDMA. So what we're doing is we're using those drugs to essentially help us rewire the brain and to make therapy more effective. And in essence, what we're doing is through a very short treatment course. What we're doing with ketamine is 17 hours outpatient over 4 weeks, therapy and drug delivered together, and that delivers those results. But what we find is there's a certain amount of inbuilt resistance in the addiction treatment industry. Now, I'm not here to throw stones at any industry or anything along those lines, but there are some type parts of the industry that quite like the revolving door that exists in the treatment for alcohol use disorder. And so what we see when we see the addiction treatment industry in the US in particular, with those 14,500 clinics treating alcohol use disorder with a 75% failure rate, but yet costing the system $25 to $35 billion a year, what we see is an industry that requires disruption. We see an opportunity to disrupt that industry, but we know there's going to be resistance because there are incumbents that like the industry operating the way that it does. And so what we're doing and what we're setting about doing is bringing to market therapies and therapeutics that are significantly more effective than the incumbent treatments to enable us to disrupt that large, underperforming industry. And really the core purpose is so that we can provide hope for individuals, families, and communities for whom those current treatments aren't working.
You know, I think what you said there at the end really hits, because I think everybody has or knows somebody that's been affected by alcohol addiction. And, you know, at the end, it's like a waterfall. There are families, children affected by this. So I'm glad to see that, you know, you and your team have that focus. Anthony, I want to ask you a little bit about your background. How did you get into the space?
So I'm not a scientist by any way, shape, or form. I'm a technologist by training. I have a degree and a master's in technology. I decided I wanted to know how money worked coming out of university. So I worked in banking for a number of years. I left banking when the financial crisis occurred, and I went to work in professional services. But I did about 10 years. I'm based in Ireland, in Dublin, but I did 10 years, 3 days a week, based in Dublin. When I was working in Dublin, the financial district in Dublin is cheek by jowl with the North Inner City, which is the most underprivileged part of Ireland. And so I observed up close and personal the damage that alcohol, opioids, heroin, and also gambling have done and continue to do to large parts of Irish society. Then when I went to work in London, did 10 years, 3 days a week, so on a plane and living in hotels, and it started to get, I've spoken about this publicly before, it started to get a bit messy. Wednesday nights turning into Saturday nights, etc., as happens when you spend too much time traveling. And so I decided I had to get out of that lifestyle. And so that's why myself and my co-founders, John Held, my CFO, my co-founder, who I know through a mutual acquaintance, or knew through a mutual acquaintance, we decided to come together to bring the benefits of psychedelics to bear, to solve a problem that I was brushing up against, that's destroyed large parts of Irish society and many parts of other societies globally. And what we set out to do was to bring psychedelics to bear to make therapy more effective in solving this large, intractable problem that destroys individuals, families, and communities.
Anthony, I want to thank you for sharing a little bit of your personal journey as well. What about some of your key team members? I know you mentioned your co-founder there. You want to maybe talk a little bit about some of your team members that, you know, you've brought on board to make sure that this company and, you know, your treatment succeeds?
Yeah, so we're lucky enough to have a very, very good team. I'll just mention a few of them just in the interest of time, but I've got my co-founder, John Held, who's a Canadian, very familiar with the Canadian markets. So that's key for your investors, or not for your investors, for your audience to understand is we're very proximate to the Canadian investor base. On the science side, we've got a very, very good team. That's led by Professor David Nutt, who is a world authority in the addiction space. He was the former head of the European Brain Council. He's head of department in Imperial College London in the psychopharmacology department, and he works for us part-time. He is one of the top 3 researchers globally in the area of addiction, and he is the top researcher in the use of psychedelic drugs in combination with therapy to treat addiction. So David is our Chief Scientific Officer. We've got a good team of special advisors. Key one for your audience probably is Professor Barbara Mason. She's head of the Scripps Institute in California, and she's one of the US's leading researchers in the area of addiction. And her and David would have worked together on bringing drugs to market and getting FDA approval in the addiction space over many years. So we've got a really lean, focused team with experience in Canadian capital markets, with experience in the psychedelic space and the addiction space, and with great experience with interacting with regulators, UK, Europe, and very, very importantly, in the US, because that's really the core market for us, is beginning to work now with the FDA and to initiate research to get us into market in the US in due course, because that's where the biggest need is, but it is a commercial entity, and that's where the biggest commercial opportunity also exists as well.
So you're out there trying to provide a solution to a problem that's affecting a lot of people. You have a strong team. You've just listed on the CSE. Of course, you were previously a listed company, but you're on the CSE now. What are some of the milestones that our viewers can expect and look out from you and your team in the next 4 to 6 months?
Sure. So I think what's really important for your viewers and the team to understand is we've got data, we've got efficacy, safety proven, efficacy proven, and we've got data. We're in the clinic, and we're actually at late clinical stage. So our lead program, where we're repurposing racemic ketamine to be used in combination with therapy to treat severe alcohol use disorder, phase 2 completed, phase 3 due to start this current quarter, so enrollment due to start this current quarter. That trial is a 280-person trial. It's been run at extremely low cost because the UK Department of Health are funding most of it. So that trial only costs us 800,000 sterling. And the key milestone for us is enrollment to start this quarter and then to run that trial through the course of this year and next year. Our secondary program, where we're working with the German pharmaceutical company to repurpose S-ketamine, so the S-antimer of racemic ketamine, into an oral thin film where we have appropriate IP protection in place around the formulation and method of use. Key milestone for us is to seek a pre-IND meeting to get approval from the FDA to go straight into late phase 2, so to go into phase 2B, and to then complete that, or get that feedback from the pre-IND meeting, and then to start a phase 2B trial. So we're going to seek that pre-IND meeting in the near term. We'd aim to have feedback in H1 this year, and then ideally start that late clinical stage trial in H2 this year. And then the next milestone is we're working with Catalent, one of the world's largest drug dev, manufacturing, and distribution companies, to repurpose MDMA into an oral disintegrating tablet for sublingual delivery. And we believe we can significantly improve the pharmacokinetics of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, thereby improving the unit economics when it comes to actual healthcare setting. And the key milestones should have a results from an animal study where we can compare and contrast the PK with traditional MDMA versus our formulation of MDMA. And if that's promising, then it would be to seek to get into the clinic as soon as possible through the FDA. So data from that animal study, H1 this year, and then ideally getting into the clinic H2 or H2 this year or H1 next year.
Well said. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to, educate myself a little bit and talk to our audience about this crisis that's happening and how Awakn Life Sciences is working towards providing solutions. Where can we direct our viewers to obviously sign up for your press release, read up on your trials, and of course, reach out to you and your team should they want more information?
So if they want to reach out to me, it's Anthony at AWKNLifeSciences.com. That's Awakn spelled AWAKN, lifesciences.com. Just drop me an email. I'm more than happy to to connect, have a conversation. And anyone who wants to find out more about the company, just visit our website, awakenlifesciences.com. Go into the investor relations section there. Our corporate deck is there. All our historic news is there. And then they can sign up for our comms as well. And they'll receive all the PRs as we push them out.
Excellent. Anthony, I look forward to hosting you on in the next, let's say, 6 months, where we can provide our audience with other update. Again, to everybody watching, you've been listening to Anthony Tennyson, who is the co-founder and CEO of Awakn Life Sciences Corp, on the CSE now under the symbol AWKN. And of course, I'm going to end it off by saying, if you are struggling and dealing with any sort of addiction, whether it might be food, drugs, or specifically alcohol addiction, there are people out there to help. Talk to somebody. I know it's easy to say, talk to someone, but I think a lot of people are in the same boat at this time.
I would echo that thought as well.
Anthony, again, thank you so much, and you have a great day.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.